Welcome. This will be my video on the 1995 feature-length short story collection, Four Rooms. First we're gonna do a review that's not gonna spoil any of the four, and then I'm gonna get into a spoiler section where I'm gonna talk about all four of them. And the age rating is R, both for the movie and this video. And I appreciated a lot of what they did here. I'm not sure I would go so far as to say that I loved. I'm gonna make up my mind over the course of this video. But yes, we are still doing a Tarantino theme, one of his movies per month. In this case, a short film of his that, they made as part of a feature-length thing. This is my first viewing, and this is, I've been looking for an inexpensive way to watch this for not quite 30 years, even though it's 30 years old. I was not familiar with Tarantino 30 years ago, but 25 years, I would say, I've been looking for it. And yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's his best, but it's certainly, there's a lot to love in his segment. And it's also the first time in a while that I've watched, in addition to the first time, first time since my initial viewing of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, was that 2019, that I've watched a Tarantino movie that I hadn't already watched. And also, let's see, when did I last watch a Rodriguez? That's also been a while. I guess when I watched the most recent of the Machete films, or it was either that or possibly Planet Terror, but yeah, several years ago at least. And I am not familiar with the two other, let's see, I'm afraid I already forgot their names. They were on the screen. I just finished watching this. The end credits ran. I already forgot their names. I'm sorry. I'd look it up, but my wrists are really fucking sore right now. But a few days ago, I skimmed both of their full filmographies. Not only have I not watched anything else by them, I don't think I've heard of a single thing. If I have, it's been so long, I just completely forgot. I'll do my best when I talk about their two segments, but it's yeah, I'm not familiar with them. Anyway, I guess I will. So yeah, basically the idea here is, you have these four short films. The reason it is called Four Rooms is that it is, New Year's Eve. I guess in 95, I'm not sure they ever say a year. Certainly that fits. A hotel, and yeah, the bellboy or bellhop. I think they use the two of them interchangeably, maybe. Um, Ted, Tim Roth. he is called upon by 4 different rooms at different times of this one night to help with something. And yeah, that's the basic, that is the framing device. And I don't think I want to give too much away about. I think I read some details about this like years ago, but I had forgotten almost everything I had read about this. Like it was coming to me like basically every time something happened, I was like, did I read about this like 15 fucking years ago? I mean, I understand why they thought it was worth mentioning in like their review or whatever the fuck it was I read. Yeah, it's 4 different rooms, different stories, somewhat different sensibilities, and yeah, um, certainly the Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino segments are very of their particular styles and the way that they were doing things in the 90s, certain things have changed since then, but back then, yeah, this is very much the kind of thing that you would expect from them. And yeah, it's wild to think. Like I still have pretty fond memories of Bedhead. I every so often I think about maybe I should do a video on Bedhead. Let me know in the comments if you have an opinion either way. But yeah, Robert Rodriguez is when he works on like short kind of like sometimes that's some of his best work. Bedhead, Sin City, like he himself has admitted that the way he stitched together in the scripting phase El Mariachi was by making a bunch of short films that led into each other. And I don't if Tarantino has ever done another short, then I don't know of it. I'm fairly confident his Death Proof is feature length, same as Planet Terror is. I wouldn't mind, but his does feel like that's the thing. Like Tarantino's, a number of his scenes do feel like short films essentially. So also works well with him. But I will definitely say that all 4 of them do a good job of like very quickly, okay, so including end credits, this is 94 minutes. 4 shorts, you can probably do the math. They don't have a huge amount of running time each. So they do have to get to the, they can't spend forever just setting something up, And yeah, all 4 of them do a good job. I, pretty quickly got some idea of what, was what it was going to be like for each of them. And yeah, some of this I'm going to have to save for the spoiler discussion, but I'll definitely, yeah, honestly, I think that might be as much as I can say about that. So moving on, and right, all 4 of them, at least on paper, interesting enough, worth committing to film kind of concepts. The psychological accuracy is, I guess I'll say at least some of the time, very accurate. There were definitely times where I, could see, okay, this might actually be how someone like that would react to something like this if it were to happen in real life. The authenticity, see, that's again, I would definitely say that each of them stay true to what each is doing. And that's also something, they're set in the same overall universe, but they are very different to the point where I wouldn't rule out, like, some people might get the wrong idea about this if they, like, I guess I'll say there's at least one aspect of the very first of these shorts that might have you thinking that that element appears in the other ones, and unless that element is Ted, let me just say, maybe not, and which, to be clear, I'm not like complaining or something. I really appreciate, I guess I don't want to say exactly when they appear, but I'll just note that neither Rodriguez nor Tarantino appear as the very first, which I kind of appreciate. Like, they could almost definitely have been like, no, we're the big stars, make us appear immediately, kind of thing, And let's see, I think, yeah, the level of detail is quite good. There were times where, like, I was genuinely, I'm not gonna say specifically which I'm referring to as what, but at least one of them, I was like, okay, they actually, that's a good job of having stuff build off other stuff. There was at least one where yeah, I felt like they did their research and just, yeah. Um, the tone varies quite a bit. Um, all of them have some comedic element or other, not necessarily like wall-to-wall laughs, not trying to be. And the, yeah. Also, the the dialogue, I guess yeah, so there's some good dialogue in all four of them. I can't really compare, well, let's see. One of them was definitely called Anders. Okay. I'm gonna have to just real quick look up just to have, okay, so they are Anders and Rockwell. I cannot speak to whether or not they, if that's their general kind of dialogue or if it's very different, but there was definitely some good, both written and directed dialogue. Rodriguez, it is the kind of thing of, it is not his strongest suit. When he sometimes he can really just put out an absolute banger of a line, and then other times it's like, okay, that was kind of slightly awkwardly exposition-y, and yeah. And Tarantino, like, I've said it in other videos, so I'm not going to spend forever on it here. I'll just note, yeah, this does indeed have very Tarantino, yeah, he lives up to his usual knack for dialogue. The direction, so the yeah, I think I guess I'll go ahead and talk about Anders first. So there's I guess, trying to keep it vague so as to not spoil, I thought there was a sort of airy lightness and just like kind of cute sense of humor, as yeah, and the that was also one where we meet multiple characters over, they introduce several characters, not all right at once, in a way that felt, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, it worked really well, the way that they would just gradually introduce each of these. Rockwell, there's a very firm grip on the specific situation. Keeping it vague again. A very, very clear... Yeah, like there was nothing left up to chance. It felt very, very self-assured. Rodriguez, I guess it's not impossible. This is part of how he decided he was gonna start making goddamn fuck ton of, Spy Kids and occasional other, like, kids movies. To be clear, this not a kids movie, but it definitely, like, of all the things one of the things that it reminded me the most of was Bedhead, which I guess it's possible he's being cheeky by actually including clips of Bedhead on TV in the hotel room. But I personally haven't watched let's see. I guess this is a pretty good time to just briefly talk about. Yeah. So Rodriguez, I've watched up to and including the first Spy Kids. I watched Shark Boy and Lava Girl, I think it's called. The first one. I think there's at least one more now. And his Machete films and Planet Terror. And yeah, I understand why some people love his kids films. And if I think I was probably already a little too old to be watching. I watched them because it was him, I've liked kids films made by other directors, Ultimately, Rodriguez, not really someone that, I'm not the biggest fan of his kids' films. But I definitely do think that he has this sense of the what's the word? Like these kinds of, I remember at least one Simpsons writer referring to it as rubber band reality. This thing where, like, yeah, some of the time it feels like, okay, this is taking place in reality, and then at other times something will happen where you're like, what? and maybe I should watch more of his movies. Let me know if more of them are like this. I might. Okay, I'm not 100% sure I'm willing to watch more of his kids' films, but I do think it works well when he does something where he plays into like the kind of goofy, just yeah. Like I said, bedhead, that kind of thing, which is also, bedhead, like, it has kids in it. I'm not sure I would necessarily myself show it to kids. There's at least one part that's a little much for, but I'm not entirely sure it was meant as a kid's film. Like, didn't he do it as like a university, like a film school film? I think, but yeah. I think that might more or less cover. I guess I'll just briefly note. So there is at least one kid in his of the 4 rooms, and yeah, like what's the word? He has this sense of not necessarily what kids are 100% like, but what we're maybe like glad, relieved they're not like, and the kind of thing that, again, this is not for kids. I'm not sure I would say Bedhead is, but with something like Spy Kids, he puts stuff on screen that at least a number of kids want to watch, and I do think that is a good thing to have. Like, I'm not one of those, people. I can't stand when people criticize stuff made for kids by saying, well, this is clearly for kids. Like, yeah, like, I think it's fair if you feel that it's imparting, really horrible values, that sort of thing. But to be like, yeah, I think that might just about cover. I guess I'll just note it has at least one cast member that we, one might expect for one of his movies from the 90s. And I guess that pretty much covers that. So yeah, Tarantino's. I was a little bit surprised by one particular aspect in Tarantino's room, and yeah, I'll talk about it. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it feels very Tarantino-esque. Do you say that when it's the person themselves? It does some of what we expect from Tarantino, but yeah, character interaction is a very big thing for him, and he, you have these scenarios where the audience like quickly get a sense of the people and sort of the situation, and like, Tarantino is one of those writer directors who can very quickly get you to sit up and go like, oh fuck, oh shit, that's so fucked, and that again is somewhere where it works really well for him to do a short film, and I think that might cover the overall. Yeah. So the cinematography and editing are very nicely varied across the 4 shorts. I mean, I think I don't have that much to add about. Yeah, I think I've said as much as I about Anders and Rockwell. So I'll just yeah. With Rodriguez, there is the yeah, you can see that he loves comic books, so, and it's not necessarily that it doesn't feel like a superhero comic thing, but the kind of, yeah, the way that he frames some shots and has stuff lead into other stuff feels in some ways more reminiscent of comic book panels than the way you might edit together shots. And yeah, like sometimes I really wish he had him, is he still making movies? I'm not entirely sure. Oh, right. Don't know how I forgot to mention Battle Angel Alita. Watch that one as well. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. Just for a while, he kept making kids movies, and then he would occasionally dip back into making an R-rated picture, but every time I heard about them, they were just fucking slaughtered by, like, yeah, did not get good reviews. But yeah, he's just got this real interesting sense of visuals. That's again where some of the best, like if we're talking visually, some of his best work is stuff like Sin City, where he straight up is making a comic book adaptation, and yeah, it's great to see the way that he just, that's his visual style works really well for this somewhat more comedic stuff, and yeah, with Tarantino, so there's some camera stuff here that's very unusual. I don't know if he just felt that this worked better for the material compared to what he was more frequently doing around this time. I agree. Certainly it's possible he just wanted to experiment a bit more, but yeah, the way that there's this thing where the camera will right, and we do indeed have some long takes. This does cut between shots, slightly more often than some of his work from around this time, which again, it's shorter, and some of the time it's also, I would argue, dictated by the material. But yeah, at times the camera will film one particular thing for a while, and then it'll turn 180 degrees or otherwise make a camera move that draws attention to itself, and then maybe stay on the new subject for a little while, and then maybe do another move. And just, yeah, it worked really, really well. Yeah. Let's see, the production value is quite good. There wasn't really anywhere where it felt like they were cutting corners. And I guess this is decent enough time to note, I am aware this was also really hated by critics. I don't know, it's one of those things where I can understand why there were a number of people who can't stand this. And I think I will definitely talk about at least some of what has bothered people. in the review itself, not only in the spoiler section. Now, I think that does cover stuff. Yeah, the set design is quite good. It tends to be, we're seeing the inside of the hotel, but we're also seeing different rooms, different price points of, yeah. And each place feels like the that we're actually seeing the inside of, yeah, of such a room. Each time we're told what um, the let's see. Now that I think about it, I'm not entirely sure it's always. At least some of them are in very specific rooms. Others are just, a hotel room in this. But yeah. And I think, yeah, the costumes. Somebody had fun working on the costume. Multiple people. Yeah, they did a really solid job. There's at least one outfit that I will talk about in the spoiler section, but I'm definitely not going to give it away here. Yeah, I don't know. It's memorable. I'll definitely give them that. The makeup also very nicely done on that, and the music each time helps. Really, yeah. It works. It always serves what they're going for. It never feels like something was slapped on just to, appeal to a certain demographic or something. Sound design, yeah. One of the places I especially really enjoyed it was the Rodriguez section, which again, something he's really, really, really good at. And I guess that brings us to... So I'm not going to go too much into detail about the characters overall. There's definitely some very memorable ones, and it always felt like they were conceived based on what was believed to make the most sense for the particular story. Never felt like they went, that they just did something, nothing in this in general really feels like a studio note. It feels like they got to make what they wanted to. One character I will talk about, and that segues nicely into the acting, is Tim Roth as Ted. So, opinions on him are a little mixed. Some people say that he's just terrible, whereas others say that he's just bad. I did see at least one person say that it would be fine except for his lines. And I think I can somewhat see what they mean, but I don't think I would really say that I thought that the physical performance worked either. Others have already pointed to Jerry Lewis, and that was apparently, like, at one point, one character straight up does reference Jerry Lewis. I already forgot what it was called. The movie wherein he plays a bellhop himself. And I have to admit, I haven't watched that one. I'm frankly undereducated when it comes to Jerry Lewis. I've seen a little bit, but yeah. I definitely do see some Jerry Lewis in there, and in general, like, yeah, this sort of... I guess I should go into more detail for anyone else who hasn't much familiarity with Jerry Lewis. Slapstick, I mean, I'm more familiar with Laurel and Hardy and Chaplin. Quite fond of them. Yeah, there's definitely some of that going on here, and I'm sorry. I have tremendous respect for Roth. I 100% understand why Tarantino, brings him back for yeah. He's one of the most frequent to appear in Tarantino's films. I even think he can be incredibly funny. Just he fairly rarely is here, and I don't know if it's. I mean, certainly the performance is consistent across the four. So I don't know if maybe Tim Roth himself is the one who decided how this was gonna be and then just kept going with it. Or it's possible one of the directors set the tone and then the others, just let him do his thing because he said, well, the other one said that this was right, but yeah, I don't think that it's all that good, especially not considering how much of the film he's in. I will say there were a couple of times where, honestly, yeah, if I had to, I think he was funniest in the Rodriguez section, and Tarantino was probably the one where it was the most toned down to fit. Tarantino doesn't tend to go for like this, more broad kind of, even though it is a character written and directed by him that brings up Jerry Lewis. But yeah, so to be clear, I'm not trying to lay this at the feet of Anders or, God damn it, Rockwell, I think was the name. I swear, I am not meaning any disrespect. For some reason, when people see me not remember a name, they think I'm purposefully trying to be disrespectful. I swear I am not. It's entirely possible that this, frankly, there is some chance that that this was Tarantino's idea, since, again, he's the one who writes and directs a character to say, oh, hey, Jerry Lewis, bellboy. But yeah, it's, it would have been great for this if they had, like, maybe spend a tiny bit more time thinking about how it would end up being to spend so very long with this one character. And I really feel bad for Mr. Roth. I think I've done more than enough. It's just he's in a lot of this, so yeah, that was one of the something several people criticized. Unfortunately, some of what was said, again, as usual, I've only read the blurb. I haven't read anyone's entire review for this, but yeah, recently anyway. Yeah, some of them, the blurb will say, well, I liked, X amount and Y amount I didn't think were so good, but the blurb doesn't say which they liked and which they didn't, so I can't really speak to that. Now, I think the acting, I will say, other than him, the acting in each of the rooms is consistent with the tone, but by and large. Possible occasional exception, but yeah, that they're going for in that particular room. And yeah, I think that does. Yeah, the pacing, I was impressed that none of them felt like they were rushing, considering how short they are. And again, can't speak. I forgot. I looked up a couple of days ago and then I forgot, and I'm gonna have to give my wrist a rest right now. But certainly two of these writer-directors, are more known for feature films than short films. So yeah, I think that might. I wouldn't say that any of them drag either, but then that would also be, yeah. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, that covers that aspect. So the special effects. It's not necessarily that there's a huge amount, but they always fit. Some of them are a little on the cheesy side, but it's very clearly purposeful. It's not that they like ran out of money or something. And the ones that need to be like convincing are. And the I think that more or less right. So I've already mentioned the physical comedy and how in Rodriguez's some of it is in like cinematography and editing and such. Some of the performances are broad for comedic purposes. Some of the time it is the dialogue, situation, that sort of thing, that is funny. And it is one of those things where I think it's important to keep in mind when it was made. So there is definitely some of the 90s grit and edge here. I believe this technically qualifies as independent, and it certainly, there is some of that going on. So it will show some things that even, I know I've already said it's R-rated, but there's still a thing or two in here that you might be like, what? If you hear or read about it or watch it. I am going to discuss them in the spoiler sections. But I would definitely say everything, some of it is there, like, in part at least, to be shocking, but I wouldn't really say that there's anything that's just like going out of its way to be shocking without really having anything, just purely there for that. The way that I would definitely say there are times where, Rodriguez has done a thing or two that was clearly just there to shock audiences. And I guess I can now, just in case, I don't think it's that difficult to find. If you really want to know, and if you don't, then I don't want to give it away. I think that does. Yeah. I guess. Did I? Yeah, I think I'll. Yeah. So, the the rating. Put it off long enough. I think what makes the most sense is to give, okay, so the Anders segment is a 6 out of 10. So is the Rockwell one. The Rodriguez one is a 7 out of 10. And Tarantino's is an 8 out of 10. And that's, that brings us to what I call the thoughts section, or the spoiler section. So from here on out, I am spoiling absolutely everything. I'm not necessarily going to go entirely in chronological order, so just be aware, if you keep watching, I might spoil the very ending. So I'm going to go largely in chronological order, but I guess I will... I think I'm just gonna go ahead and so the very first one, the missing ingredient. As soon as the at this point I forget if he was a bellboy or not, but the older guy, telling Tim, which also, one hell of a... didn't they say this was his first day? I think they said that at the start. Yeah, I only just remembered this just now, but yeah, one hell of a first fucking day. But the as soon as the older guy says, keep your dick in your pants, like, we immediately know, okay, so that's not gonna happen, obviously. But the so we have so he he helps the various of the witches to get to the... I quite like, I think I will call it the room for lovemaking. That was that's a good way to put that. Is I thought it worked the way that the witches were introduced, not exclusively one at a time, but some of them. First we meet I feel very tempted to call the character Madonna playing herself, but I think they call her Vida? The Madonna character. We meet her and the other witch at the same time, which also sets up the relationship and makes clear that Madonna is in charge of the coven. Not oven. And then we meet the one who says the room for lovemaking, and then we meet the last of them. That worked. And so one of the first things is the Madonna, and the thing with, you're acting like my mother. I am your mother. Then why are we having sex? Which, that's the kind of joke you'd get in some of these 90s. I suppose it's not that it never happens today in movies, but and I mean, I think the idea is that, like, because I know with witches the mother is important, so I think that's what Madonna's character is referring to. Um, yeah, and also we very much have the IDGAF sensibility of the Madonna character, or I guess but all right, shit. I guess it's the other girl, but the fact that Madonna isn't like, you can't say that in front of company. She's just like yeah, she just lets it be. But uh, as far as I can tell, they're not literally like mother and daughter. Not even through adoption. They are lovers, but she's the Madonna character is the leader of the coven. Hence, this was the one where that I referred to in the review as they did their research. Like, I am not knowledgeable enough to say if it's everything, but there were a bunch of things here where it was like, okay, this is all stuff I've heard from reputable sources is true of at least some witches today. And I think I'm just briefly gonna just note, appreciate, so I guess I should just briefly, in case you, for some reason, I mean, there's time to remedy your mistake. Maybe you didn't already watch Stutterbox video on 90s, witches in movies and such, but yeah, in the 90s, witches were kind of seeing. Oh, and also Tara Mooney, I think, also talked about it in her. Certainly, her video on. Let's see. The Witch and Why She Went Digital, I think, is the name of the video. If I recall correctly, she also talked about 90s witches. She certainly talked about how the perception of witches have changed over time. Yeah, in the 90s, witches, it was, there was some, it was being reclaimed by some, and it was getting somewhat of a reevaluation. It was more, seen as like sisterhood. There were, yeah, Charmed, Practical Magic, The Craft. I'm pretty sure there were others, but those are the ones that off the top of my head. I don't think did I ever watch Practical Magic? I wanted to. It sounds like it sounds really, really good. I'd like to watch it. I have watched the other ones. But yeah, it wasn't always like 100% positive depiction, but there was at least some, it wasn't exclusively bad the way that it used to be, and yeah, like there was, a while where like if like yeah, a woman might get accused of witchcraft, even be put to death if she, I don't know, defy gender norms. It's become clear that a bunch of the time that was genuinely it, which I guess is. I mean, I wasn't shocked that there are still conservative Christians insisting that women have to live down to what conservative Christianity demands of them, trad wife life. But yeah, I mean, I'm not even particularly shocked by the essay that is being discussed. I think I'm just gonna direct you to, I think, both Edgier Than Thou. Let's see if I can recall the title. Please Give Conservatives Special Treatment, and Dead Domain, grading the quote-unquote essay. something along those lines, you know. Yeah, both of them did fantastic discussion of the actual essay. Yeah, I don't know that I have much of anything to add. Oh, and I think I haven't gotten around to watching it yet, but if I recall correctly, was it Cat Black also did a video. I'm looking forward to it. She, fantastic analysis. All three of them, fantastic analysis. From what I've seen of their work. I think I've only recently started watching Edgier Than Thou. The other two I've been watching for a while now. But yeah. So this, the missing ingredient fits into this reevaluation of witches. And yeah, none of them are conventionally unattractive. They aren't like looking to do something evil. I mean, it centers on them working on a potion, so like you could, like there's so many pieces of media where it would have been about them trying to do something evil, but they're just trying to bring back, their goddess, and it happens at the end. And we spend the next 3 shorts not seeing the world fucking end or something, so like clearly it didn't actually like do something, horrible or anything. So yeah. And the yeah, you've got the rhyming, you've got the way that they use ingredients that are like derived from the body and such. And it's presented like there's a slightly, goofy, light tone to it, but it's not really like hating them. So yeah, really appreciate that. And yeah, I guess it also further context the frank discussion of sex, the way that so she admits that she swallowed, and then one of the others says, "Didn't you learn not to put that thing in your mouth?" or something along those lines, which yeah, I have been saying for a while. There's not anything wrong with women discussing sex in this frank a manner. Like obviously, time and place, but yeah, this is a perfectly fine time and place for. So yeah, the and yeah, they're all like, it's not like there's a child in the room or something really fucked up. Like no, it's the they're all adults. Yeah, and the it's one of those things. So many of the male misogynists who are like, women shouldn't talk about sex like that, like they themselves talk with other men about sex. And like if you listen to a lot of male misogynists talk about sex with women, talk with other male misogynists about having sex with women, they do so in a really demeaning way. And then, like, I'm not saying always, but a lot of the time when women talk to other women about sex with men, they're not really demeaning the men. So felt relevant. I think that might pretty much bring us to the so yeah. They the right, and also yeah, I mean, a couple of them get partially nude, and it's again not really, it's not filmed in a way that is like really male gazy. It's kind of a neutral framing, like one of the aspects you'll see in a number of male gazy things is like these like close-ups of specific body parts of women, really objectifying them. Like it's not like if the woman herself, as part of just what she's already doing, gets partially naked, and the camera is just like staying there and happens to every so often capture, like it's not like constantly going out of its way to make sure we can see naked breasts. It's just because like, and this is also, this might be part of why Puritans really couldn't stand witches. It sometimes involved women, being, or wait, shit. It's been too long since I researched witchcraft. Not for personal use, professional. The movie research is what I mean. I can't right now remember if that was actually something that was invented by, and then later invented by Puritans who wanted to demonize, somewhat literally, women, witches. There's a Freudian slip. Because Puritans needed very little excuse to call women, witches. Yeah. And if it was something then later embraced by practitioners, I forget. But anyway, it is something that, it pops up in some of this media, and it is also just an accurate, there are, to be clear, I'm not saying witches are like a monolith or something, but and at this point, it feels almost silly to not at least mention. There's some pretty good stuff about witches in Agatha all along. But let's see. Yes, some witches do indeed, get partially or fully naked as part of witchcraft. So, yeah, that's what we're seeing here. And so in the review itself, I talked about how at least one particular costume was clearly fun to think up and work. Madonna's dress was, I'm sure. I mean, I hope I've heard that sometimes stuff like that is very uncomfortable to wear and move around in, but it definitely fit the character and the tone of the short. And I guess, and that's again where you see, like, it could easily have been male gazy. They could have had a lot of like leering close-ups, but it's, yeah. Let's see. I think, yeah. So they they call up Ted and leave the room with the words, make her smile. And I will admit, when he started doing shtick to make her smile, I was definitely, or I guess, wait, did he? Maybe he didn't even start to really do shtick, or at least maybe it wasn't the character, but the actor doing shtick. But I was thinking, oh no, this is gonna, are they gonna like spend a while on just him doing, but yeah. And I appreciate it. He actually, he takes off the, when he takes off the coat, he puts it, he put the coat on her. And that is also one of those, it's a fun little comedic bit where like it's really just the context, because like when we see him start to take his clothes off, like, yeah, because the witches have just been talking about, you're gonna have to, you have 1 hour, get some semen out of him, What's she gonna do with the remaining 59 minutes and 30 seconds, though? Okay. But yeah. Um, and they even give privacy. And she's sitting there topless. So when we see him start to undress, like, yeah, we immediately think, oh, I mean, yeah, I wasn't necessarily surprised. This was when, and I appreciate this still sometimes the case, but yeah, back then there would be a bunch of jokes in American shows and movies and such about like, guys always want sex. What was it they said, every 7 seconds or something? And it provided you maybe take some, make sure to hydrate if you're going to do that frequently. But the yeah, there were jokes about how because that was the thing. I'm trying to figure out how best to broach this. I guess I'll briefly finish so yeah, ultimately it turns out no, he was just he wasn't thinking about sex. He was thinking about like, oh, she must, feel she probably doesn't want to be topless around me. And it is a fun, like it's essentially like part of the joke there is, it's like, no, that's you're doing the opposite of what she's, like that wasn't exactly what she had in mind. That's gonna make it, that's gonna slow things down. You should probably, yeah. But yeah. So she does, she explains I quite appreciated that. That's again something to take note of. She wants to have sex with him for a very specific reason, and she just tells him the reason. Like, nothing that she says appears to be at all a lie. So that's, I don't know. I've noticed that a lot of misogynist men, when they really badly want to have sex with a woman, they seem to think that it's fine to lie to her. But then they'll turn around and scream about how her wearing makeup is a lie. But if she doesn't wear makeup, then that's also bad, because you can't really be good enough for someone who's bigoted against you. That's just not going to happen. You're going to have to, or not necessarily you, but someone's going to have to genuinely get them out of their bigotry before that's going to happen. But yeah, she lays it all out, and nice touch with the, so she holds up the picture, and then it starts moving right in front of him. And the, yeah, ultimately he says that he's not going to have sex with her, and then she puts a love spell on him with some delightfully cheesy graphics that fit the tone. Hearts, stars. Shit, what was the last one? There was at least one more symbol there, but I'm struggling to recall exactly what it was. But yeah, it's one of those things. So considering when this came out, I think there's a chance that they're making that joke that was popular around that time that suggested that a conventionally attractive woman cannot rape a man, at the very least not a straight man, because men always want to, which is obviously an incredibly fucked up thing. There are men who are raped. including by conventionally attractive women. So yeah, you know, the important thing, like, regardless, we should be teaching consent. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, certainly, because later, you have the thing about, well, was she ugly? No, she was pretty. Oh, actually, that was pretty good. Like, so that, yeah. But it's, yeah, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, one of the things going on is also a woman taking charge of sexuality. So basically, she has sex with two men within a fairly short amount of time, and I mean, the witches leave. They don't force her to do it. They tell her you have to do it. They put pressure on, but they're not like, like, no, none of them say they're gonna like curse her if she does. But then at the same time, like, sometimes when someone pressures someone into something they don't want, including sex, it's not necessarily overt threats. So I don't know. I I think I am more or less going to leave it with what I've said. That's what I feel qualified to say. I'm not. I don't feel confident in saying it is 100% good or bad, or even how many percentage points in the middle or what. But I'm just. These are the things I feel I can, you know, evaluate. These are the aspects, and someone who's more equipped. Yeah, I think that might right. And to be clear, also, I am afraid I do not. I don't remember the stats. I'm not saying that men and women rape at the same rate. Research has been done. There are stats. If you want those specific ones, they are online. I'm not at all calling into question the numbers from the most reputable sources. I mean, I wouldn't rule out someone has tried to, like, I remember there was a thing about, like, someone tried to make it seem like women abuse men as much in like the domestic abuse. And someone pointed out there was some flaw in the methodology that I don't quite recall. I think that might, yeah, I mean, right. One thing that is also, ultimately, yeah, they do have sex, and the goddess returns, and let's see. Yes, a thing that is also happening here is that a woman is, telling a man that she wants to have sex, rather than being expected to wait for a man to desire her, and then being blamed by, a number of misogynistic men, even if she didn't do anything to invite the sex. But yeah. Yeah, I think that might cover the first of the yeah. Yeah, just genuinely appreciated the various positive aspects. Like, it is not the depiction, for example, of the sapphic relationship is not there. It's, let's see, it's neither like exoticizing. It's not like about how, oh, it's so hot that these, it's just, they are, they're sapphic. It's not like treated as some big yeah and it's also, oh yeah, that covers that. Yeah. Um, and it definitely is, Madonna. It's the kind of thing where the um, I will admit I don't know that much about like her music. I've heard some, obviously, but the um, from what I understand, like her image, what I know of her image, this is the kind of thing that you know the yeah, there's a lot of elements of the character that fit her. Yeah. Um, right, and also I guess I'll briefly note she did a good job acting. I remember I've so I'm aware some people don't think that she's a very talented actor. I think this might be the only one of the only among the only things that I've seen her act in. So yeah. Um, but yeah, I also appreciated the way that it's delivered fairly neutrally when they note, one of the ingredients is blood from a virgin touched for the very first time. That brings us nicely to the wrong man. And yeah, I thought it worked very well the way that, so first the guy calls, and he's like, we're in room 504. And then the guy next to says, I think we're on the fourth floor. And he's like, we're in room 409. I think it's 404. We're in room 404. Was this before the internet made 404 the wrong website? I guess it's not entirely the same thing, but I don't know. Yeah, the thing about like bring we our room doesn't seem to have an ice bucket. Maybe you could bring your ice to our room. And so he goes up there, and he's feeling like $1,000,000. He does not at all think, this is when his night starts to get really fucked up. And yeah, actually, come to think of it, it's kind of it's bookended by like the middle two is him having a really shitty time, but then the first and last are actually a good experience for him. But yeah, opens the door, steps in, and yeah, they did a really solid job. So this was Rockwell. The tension and suspense, and then at the same time, the like it's an inherently comical situation. This is something like there are other very comedic takes on, South Park did at least one where someone was mistaken for the lover of their partner. Um, and by the person, the lover of the person mistaking them, not their own partner's lover. The yeah, and the way that he'll try to explain, and yeah, I think it's the kind of thing that could easily have felt like really ugly and nasty if we were laughing at the Jennifer Beals character. I'm afraid I am struggling to remember her name right now. But yeah, if we were laughing at like the fact that she's tied to a chair and gagged, that would be like really fucked up. But we're laughing at Ted being in this situation and Siegfried, being this fucking out of control jealous, and that's again like it's there's a number of misogynistic men who will act like, oh, women are so jealous. Well, there's a certain, like, misogynistic men, a lot of them don't want women to be able to make their own money. So, or like some of them think that a woman should not have more than one sexual partner in her entire life. So maybe sometimes women get insecure about if their partner is monogamous, because sometimes when men cheat on the woman they're with, they end up leaving her for the other woman. And then if these misogynists have their way, and for, quite some time they did, that woman has no way to support herself and is basically just going to have to suffer for the rest of her life through no fault of her own. So yeah, I think, sometimes it's reasonable for, I mean, I'm not saying it never happens, but like, there's a number of men who, when they get jealous, they get violent, and that's again where like this, it's very, it's something you have to be very careful about depicting, especially in a comedic way, because like it could easily come across as if you're laughing at, survivors of this sort of experience. So yeah, I think but yeah, it is very clearly like we are laughing at Siegfried being ridiculous. But yeah, the way that so this was one of the ones where the camera work was very deliberate for like the way that, so let's see, if I recall correctly, I think we see him as silhouette first, and do we maybe hear him before we get a good look at him, that sort of thing, and then like the gun comes out and we get close-ups, and we get shots of her in the chair, and she did such a great job, a lot of the time not being able to speak. It was just her eyes and the rest of her face doing the acting, really, really solid work. And also really impressive the way that, I mean, that is the one story that has the least. It's really just the three of them. Well, briefly we see the guy who ordered that. That was also when he, I'll talk about it briefly now. So yeah, he sticks his out, help, please, and then he looks up, hello, could you get some help? And then the guy goes, ice, and then he vomits on it. Ugh, just, yeah, that's such a great, because he's the one who ordered the ice. He's like, why are you down there? We need ice up here. And the, let's see, the way that it's just fucking impossible for Ted to just convince Siegfried, he's not him. Like, just, that's the thing. That's how ridiculous. And I get, okay, he's drunk, sure, but like, even so, this is ridiculous. This is such a absurd situation. So a guy walks into the room and you immediately assume he's had sex with your wife because he's in your physical proximity. It's just, it's paranoia, it's anxiety, and those things are not rational. And I think as long as you are careful about tone, it is right to make fun of those things, because every so often, sometimes the way that you realize you're being ridiculous is to see someone else who's ridiculous presented in a way that is obviously comical, so and I feel, just to make absolutely, I want to make absolutely clear, it's important to me to know the following. I have never been even remotely this, like, jealous. Like, I'm not saying that it could never bother me if my partner was interested in someone else, but never to even remotely this extent. So just so we're clear. But the let's see. You have the part where he let's see. Yeah. There's a part where he, like, briefly leaves the room, and then she's like, and so he removes the gag, and then they discuss, so are we, what are we gonna do here? Just yeah. And he ends up having to put the gag back in, and also the part where, Ted's like, I think she said yes. And then Siegfried was like, are you condescending to me? No. The gun that you just pointed at his fucking face, and the fact that you're being completely fucking ridiculous. Why would those things possibly combine to make him talk in a way that might be perceived to be condescending? Like, that's the... Dude, he is trying so fucking hard to work with you. Like, Jesus Christ. And also, like, she literally can't talk, and he's like, you always gotta have the last fucking word, don't you? I'm sorry. For a number of misogynistic men, this is what the fuck you look like. This is what you fucking sound like, okay? Knock it the fuck off. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. And it's such great, like, it really, obviously it is somewhat exaggerated. Like, this exact sort of thing is somewhat rare, but they are just taking things that, they're just exaggerating what way too many women have to deal with. Like, there's, God damn it, I forget what YouTuber, but someone did a video. Was it Harlan Spinks? Maybe did a video where he, like, reacted to, like, this misogynist, like, was making excuses for the fact that he, like, I think he even himself, like, said, yes, when he himself was out, he kept her locked inside the home. Was it even the fucking cellar or something? Like, Jesus fucking Christ. And he, like, and eventually she's like, I can't live like this. So she leaves him. And then he, like, I'm not going to repeat his exact words, but he sexually shames her and says that's why. He doesn't see that what he's doing is completely fucked up. He was so, like, he appeared on, like, I want to say a podcast, video podcast, something like that, and, like, verbally said all this out loud. He didn't have his face blurred or his voice modulated or anything. He didn't think he did anything wrong. People not dissimilar from Siegfried are just fucking out there, and maybe that's why, for a while women, had that app, the tea app, I think it was just called. What was it called? Spilling the tea? It was something along those lines, so that women could warn each other, which seems fair. And then some misogynists hacked it, and some other misogynists were gleeful. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, after a little while, Ted tells Siegfried, My mother named me Theodore, but my name is Ted. And that was, I thought his performance worked when he was giving this backstory and explaining, like, how could you possibly know my name is Theodore? The only people who knew, me back then are thousands of miles away, and he explains about the bonnet and, nobody calls me Theodore, especially Theodore Thumble, Thumper, something like that, and then Siegfried's like, I feel your pain, man. My name's Siegfried. He's capable of empathizing just only with another guy because of the name, which makes it even more absurd of a situation. Like, he doesn't appreciate that what he's doing is fucked up, but he's like, that's wrong, man. Oh my God. I mean, maybe I'm not the best judge of what's wrong because I'm waving a fucking gun around. I tied my own partner up and I'm like threatening this guy just because he walked inside the room. But that's fucking wrong, man. And the eyes of Jennifer Beals, like, Jesus fucking Christ, just yeah. And yeah, the thing about the right was not the biggest fan of the kiss. Like, I don't know, it just felt I'd like to think that maybe it wasn't like a homophobic joke, but just considering when this came out, there's some chance it was. But yeah, and then he like collapses, like, I need my pills. You're killing me, and so he goes, okay, get the pills. Should be simple enough. Opens the medicine locker as medicine cabinet, and it's like, well, which the fuck ones, like there's several like lying loose around, and yeah. Let's see. I kind of expected more to come of the fact that he accidentally flushes some clothes there. I thought that afterwards there was going to be a thing of like, what the fuck happened? Well, I left it on the toilet. Well, only Ted's been in the toilet, so but ultimately nothing more there. Yeah, the gag comes out again, and then it must have been fun sitting down and writing down this. This was written pre-internet, wasn't it? So I know I already talked about, oh, did the internet exist? I mean, when it was actually written too. I think it might have been written before internet, and yeah, so they had to just think of I guess maybe they looked in a thesaurus rex to find every single synonym for dick. But but yeah, that was great, and Siegfried being like, oh, ooh, I can't, no, this is, no, I don't like that. Waving a fucking gun around, then he's gonna get all like, you're the one who keeps talking about how she's definitely cheating, so I think actually wasn't he also the first person to say? Was he the first one to say dick? Shit, I forget. Maybe that was her, but yeah, and no, yeah, I think because didn't he say, you just can't get enough of his dick, can you? And then she's like, well, how could I? It's so big. And Ted has to stand there saying, no, it's not big at all. Why are you saying this? Just like, yeah. But that was a very fun, she's taking back the power because like he can't handle her talking like that when he's the one who, like, this entire situation is his doing, so yeah. And that covers that one. So the misbehaviors, which very quickly, like almost immediately, you can tell, okay, we're in Rodriguez world now. So yeah, let's see. I think the first thing we see is the hair thing, I think, which, yeah, sometimes Rodriguez movies will have child abuse. Don't know why. It's one of those things like, should we maybe just not laugh at that? Like, I don't know. I just feel like that's maybe not the worst thing to just, but yeah. I think I did appreciate the, I'd be upset if I thought that was a real cigarette, but, I know how this shit works. No. That's definitely a fake cigarette. There's no way they let a kid touch a real cigarette. They gave him one that is, completely harmless. And yeah, it's a little, it's fucked up, but it's I don't know. It bugged me to see him like physically hurt his kid, or any kid, by pulling in the hair and such. But the cigarette smoking, I didn't think was the, like, completely unfunny. And it also sets up, like, yeah, when his father's not, keeping him from doing it, he smokes cigarettes, and by the end, he's lit the room on fire. So, it's one of those things, because I think part of because yeah, the hair pulling doesn't really mean anything. I don't know. I guess maybe it's the first place we see that he is willing to hurt even people he cares about. I guess that's what they're trying to do with it, but it could have been done without the yeah. But the cigarette actually, like, when we have an instinctual aversion to seeing children smoke, like, we're like, no, that's not okay. I mean, ideally nobody smokes, but yeah, it's I empathize with people who are currently struggling to get out of it. From what I understand, I'm not the best person to go into detail about it, but you can Google. There are ways to beat the addiction, or at least become addicted to something that is less detrimental. But I'm not the. I feel like for a while it was this one thing, and then we heard that that's actually in some ways fucking worse. So I'm just not gonna. Just if you're trying to get out of it, there are resources, I'm sure, to find out, to get support for that. But but yeah, he picks up the cigarette, and the Banderas character doesn't even fucking do anything about it. Like, just, yeah. Let's see, the and that was also, I do think I like Banderas elsewhere as well. I think he was good in, I guess I don't want to give away exactly what, I'll just say he was in at least a Expendables movie. I thought he did good there. Did he voice? No, I'm pretty sure he voiced Puss in Boots. It's been 20. It was 20 years since I watched Shrek 2, but it can't have been that long since I watched Shrek 4. Was he in Shrek 4? I don't even fucking remember. But yeah, the couple of things I've seen him do that aren't Rodriguez, I think he does well. But I do think Rodriguez is one of the best at, like, he understands what Banderas can do, and Banderas just 100% gets the direction that Rodriguez gives, which, I'll be honest, occasionally, you'll see a performance where it's like, oh, I think that person didn't completely understand what Rodriguez was going for, and Rodriguez was just kind of moved on eventually, but yeah, that's definitely, I mean, he was one of the bright spots of that first Spy Kids, and yeah, when he is playing this larger than life, like, almost caricature, which he kind of does in, I I guess everything that Rodriguez has directed him that I've seen. I've already mentioned those films. There's at least one of them where I don't really want to give away that he appears in it, so I think I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, he's just got this intensity that lends itself well to absurdist humor and or OTT action, and yeah, just absolutely nails it. Like yeah. So the yeah, after bothering with all the getting the kids dressed up, suddenly it's just like, well, let's leave the kids here, and not long after, one of them is like, well, why the fuck did we get dressed up? Just, yeah. Let's see, I think that pretty much brings us, so yeah, they get Ted up there, and, there's the thing about, like, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Where did we, where were we? Shit. Yeah, you have the thing about, I'll pay you $500 to watch my kids. I'll pay you $300. You said 500. I said 300. I think you forgot that you said 500. I feel like, I mean, I don't want to say that it was good for him to have a gun put in his fucking face, but I feel like Ted is more confident now than, because, like, this also seems like a potentially dangerous situation, but yeah, he ends up getting 500, and the thing about, what was the thing? I'll get a I'll arrange for a babysitter for that. No, I don't trust babysitters. They could be, am I remembering it right? Did he imply, I don't think he implied pedophilia. He stated it outright. But yeah, and it's like, I don't even know them. And then his partner is like, you don't know this guy either? A lot of times, if one of us men has a fucking clue, it's because a woman gave it to us, and then he's like, look at this face. This is a trustworthy face. That was genuinely funny, and that felt very, that's Rodriguez all over. And the, oh, right, yeah, I think, yeah, that's after he, yeah, because first he just leaves the kids alone, now that I think about it. Yeah. So, he's like, okay, watch TV and, go to bed before midnight. And we'll be back, and then they leave. And, like, the doors barely closed behind them, and immediately the kid's like, it smells in here, tries to open the fucking window. Like, not only is he gonna leave when he was explicitly told to stay, he's going to jump out the fucking window. If this situation persists, maybe next time get a ground floor room. Just a thought. But yeah, and without us hearing or seeing the parents enter, suddenly he's just there and he's like, what did I just say? That's such classic Rodriguez. I fucking love it. Just like, how the fuck? How was he already that far back into the room? How did he open the door without them, like, hearing or sensing, like, the gust of wind or anything, or not wind, yeah, the air being displaced? Just nothing. He's just suddenly fucking standing there, like he fucking teleported or something. I fucking love early Rodriguez style. Just so good. And to be fair, he did also really deliver on that in Machete Kills, so it's not like it went away 100%. But but yeah, then he gets Ted in there, and he says, okay, if you need anything, dial 0, ask Ted to come get it you. And the little girl winks, and then so he's about to leave, and then he says, just I'll what did he say? I'll behave. Don't. Are you misbehaving? Were they misbehaving? Just that was a great running gag. Like, they are the misbehavers, and yeah, and then he's about to leave, and she's like, my dad said anything. He paid you we paid you $500. Where's the we? I'm sorry, is this coming out of your allowance? I mean, maybe it should. He earns that fucking 500. Jesus Christ. I mean, this is fucking Kari something from, Incredibles or something. Like, this is a pretty intense babysitting gig. But yeah, and so she says, if we need anything, we'll give you a call. And yeah, so let's see, then they start talking, so yeah, he takes off his shoes and socks, which I do appreciate. That's very much, once the adults are out of the room, if they feel it's uncomfortable to be wearing shoes and socks, they're gonna take them fucking off, and then she's like, your feet stink. So second mention of, I think they do a really good job of the setup and payoff, because every so often, someone says, it smells in here. Is it your feet that smell? They keep trying to find this. And that's very, like, when we, it's sometimes Rodriguez really hits it out of the park, because when we human beings can't place a smell, if it's foul, we're going to keep looking for it. And we might accuse completely innocent people of, like, you're the one who smells, because we want to find out what it is. And the reason is, it's hardwired into our brains. Our lizard brain does not like a foul odor that we cannot say for certain is, something that can be confirmed to be something that isn't harmful, because it could be something harmful, and it turns out it is. Could be a rotting corpse. You don't know until you check under the bed. Next time your parents say there are no monsters under the bed, try not to think about that it might be a dead individual. Yeah. But let's see, because, like, for a while, we're not necessarily thinking about it. We're just, like, because several of the times where it's brought up, something really fucked up is happening. Like, a kid's about to exit through a window, or let's see, because it wasn't just about, like, fuck's that called in American English again? Airing out the room? Was it? Because, like, I feel like, I guess maybe it was just that he was about to do that, and then his father way overreacted to that. But yeah, either joke worked. But anyway, then we're laughing at his overreaction, and then there's the thing about, like, so he, takes off his shoes, and then she, like, gets on the bed, she gets way away from him. And then they talk about, like, maybe she's the one who smells, and so so we don't necessarily think about, like, is there a fucking dead body in there? Just, yeah. And then we have the let's see. Oh, right. I guess I'll just briefly note. So the child acting is fine. Rodriguez, I think, at times is more about, like, he doesn't want to upset a child that's acting in one of his films, more than he's going to keep at it until he gets a performance that is going to like knock your socks off, at which point you'll be accused of your feet smelling. I understand that, and I mean, a lot of the times I would say, well, if your story doesn't have to have kids in it, if you could, then maybe, and today we have a lot of incredibly talented child actors. We did some back then as well, but yeah, sometimes they're rough. But I would definitely say it is crucial for the misbehaviors. You'd have to fundamentally rewrite it for it to not be kids. Like, imagine if they like cast 30-year-olds playing teenagers. Like, it would not have the same effect at all. The hooligan kids from hell, very much necessary. Oh, hey, Quentin Tarantino directing Tim Roth to speak in his original English dialect. Maybe because he fucking hated having to sound like an American in Reservoir Dogs. Who knows? But I think that brings, and they actually, they address it, and that's I don't know. I do think he did a fine job in, I feel bad for him for absolutely hating he ended up hating the dialect coach, but yeah, I think it worked well for Reservoir Dogs that he wasn't British in that. Anyway, yeah, we have the where are we? Yeah, we have the so yeah. He's like turning the channel over and finds the particular actor that during this time, if if a conventionally attractive dancing woman was required for one of his movies, Rodriguez's go-to was Salma Hayek, and no wonder she does great. I feel bad for her that's all she gets to do here. Obviously she gets more to do in From Dusk Till Dawn, but yeah. Let's see the. Yeah, and then he like refuses to turn the channel back, and like he's like lying down on the remote, and she's not physically strong enough to get it away from him, so she, sits on the bed instead and calls Ted. And there's the thing about the adult channel, and he's like, I can't turn the adult channel on without parental, and she's like, no, turn it off, I said. And yeah, it is. So elephant in the room. Yeah, at that age, kids should not see something so like the sexual kind of content. Yeah, just noting that. I'm not sure. Is there a shot where we can see that the child actor can actually see Salma Hayek dancing, or are they always just reacting? I forget. But that, it's possible that it did happen. Again, 90s. Shouldn't have, but it did sometimes happen. Yeah. And I do, yeah. The very gendered reaction they have to it, where this boy who, like, I don't know, is maybe 9 years old, is already he already likes seeing a woman like that, whereas the girl who's, I don't know, 8, doesn't like that's on TV. That did feel a little bit stereotypical. Like, it's not like she doesn't also misbehave in a way that, like, you know, she kicks him in the face. There's a lot of people who wouldn't expect a girl or a woman to do that. I mean, an adult woman, even. Um, so, yeah. I don't know. I think there definitely was some gender essentialism back then. There still is, but I think it might have been worse. Well, let's see. I guess it's you know what? It might be a wash. But yeah. The thing about, you know, she's like, no, my feet don't smell. Come on, smell. And like immediately we can tell something's going to happen here, you know. And I will admit, I didn't think it was going to be a cake. I thought it was going to turn out that her feet did smell, but the way that it's the cinematography and editing there felt very comic booky, you know, the way that it gradually, you know, at one point she's like, you know, and the way he just gets really close and he's like reluctant, and then she fucking kicks him in the face and he falls and he's like, oh, the back of my head. And it's like, oh my God, just tell me he didn't like fucking, I don't know, fracture his goddamn skull or something. But yeah, you know, I already referenced Bedhead. Like sometimes he pushes what happens to children in the things he makes for comedy and such. I think, does that bring us to the, let's see. What was the next thing? I guess they, I remember they call at least one more time. Oh, right. That, yeah, she finds the, you know, yeah, she opens the drawer, finds a needle and a Bible, and it's like, Jesus Christ. That is seriously fucked up. Do you have any idea how much harm can come from an unsecured Bible? And she, you know, understandably is upset, so calls Ted, and it's like, your cleaning lady is doing a terrible job. There's a needle here. There's not supposed to be a needle here, right? Are those complimentary? I thought we were just supposed to get a Bible. And, you know, he, like, yeah, hangs up, and he gets increasingly frustrated, eventually can barely, you know, hit with the, when she, you know, he's got the old-fashioned switchboard, which I do quite appreciate. That was a very good decision as part of set design, you know, like 1995, would they really still have a fucking switchboard? Like, that's got to be a really old hotel. Like, they must not have a fucking switchboard. Jesus Christ. Like, when I see a switchboard in something, it's usually because I'm watching something from the fucking 60s. Like, god damn. But the, yeah. I didn't know what it was before I started seeing them in movies. My parents explained them to me when I was a kid. But anyway, yes. The yeah, and then she is like, yo, I'm gonna call one of the other rooms. Say three numbers. 409. You know, which, right, that was also, it was funny that it ended with, you know, so Ted's walking away and the other guy's like, hey, I'm looking for a party. 409, you know, because, and we, like, clearly he's looking for the other party. Don't go, man. There's no fucking ice. Worst thing that's gonna happen to you tonight is gonna be a party without ice. But yeah, and then he's, oh, it must be this one, and then he goes in, oh, Theodore. Secret has learned fucking nothing. Jesus. Also, the fact that he was just testing about the heart medication, I think I forgot to mention, that was pretty funny. Just like, so he's like lucid enough to think that up, but not to stop and fucking reflect about how fucked up what he barely does one thing that isn't incredibly fucked up in the entire Wrong Man segment. You know, just like such a pitch perfect parody of, you know, toxic masculinity, misogyny, and yeah. Anyway, so the yeah, so you know, she calls as like, you know, yeah, they exchange names, and then he starts talking about like, are you fucking my wife? I'm sorry, that's I probably shouldn't laugh, but that's like, dude, listen to the voice. Do you really think? And that just really underlines, like, he'll accuse fucking anyone, like, no matter what. Just, he hears a voice, and immediately he's like, just, oh my fucking Christ. And then the, yeah, you know, she asks, do you have a needle in your room? Just, yeah. And the, and yeah, then they, right, the champagne, you know, at one point they call him as, you know, say, you know, can you bring something, you know, and then he's like, oh, I have to stop. My brother is like spraying champagne everywhere, you know, and Tess like, he's what? You know, right, and also when they use the needle as like, you know, they turn one of the paintings into a dartboard, and he does fucking bullseye it, you know. She's like, wait till I'm gone, you know, just like that was also, it was fucked up, but like, I don't know, it made me laugh. I'm going to hell, but it made me laugh. Because it made me laugh is why I'm going to hell. Such reasons, anyway. But the, yeah, you know, eventually she's like, the smell's coming from under the bed. And then she moves it. And the, yeah, really nicely done on, you know, that was also a great bit of, you know, the cinematography and editing, and the pale skin and the contorted face. Like, this was not an easy death, clearly. You know, this was the hard goodbye. And weren't there flies buzzing around? Am I remembering that right? Like, Jesus. And so she covers it up, and then she calls, and Ted's like, listen up. Oh, right, shit, I completely forgot. Yeah, so he, you know, he came up at one point and like, milk and cookies. These are saltines. Milk and saltines. You're going to go to bed right now. Right now? Your father said before midnight. It's not midnight yet, so, you know, and then also make sure they're in bed before midnight. And Ted's like, so, like, I should call and make sure they're in bed just before midnight? Is that what you're asking? You know, which just, yeah. And the, let's see. Yeah, so the, yeah, he, you know, he puts them to bed and then says, your father is right not to trust nannies. Do you know what my nanny did to me? You know, she put this, you know, yeah, rub this on my eyelids. Don't open your eyes or they will burn. What about tomorrow morning? It'll be gone by then. My nanny did this to me. I didn't, you know, I stayed in bed all night, and look at me. And then they both go, we can't. That was also very funny. I do think some of Rodriguez's best jokes are when he has people just say things like that, you know, state the obvious or misunderstand something or that sort of thing, you know. And yeah. So he, yeah, he leaves, and it doesn't take her very long to go wash it off. And then, you know, she tells her brother, you know, you should wash it off. And then he accidentally walks into a wall. I do think the physical comedy, at least some of the time, with the kids is pretty decent. And the yeah, it's more like their line readings, and sometimes the faces they pull get a little performance wise. But yeah, then the yeah, so she calls, you know, and then he's like, you can't possibly see that because, you know, you're just dreaming something. How could you possibly see that? I put the stuff on your eyelids. And then she's like, oh, we washed it off. You did? And then she's like, didn't you ever think of that? And That's such a great, because like, yeah, that's the it's that classic moment when, a obedient kid realizes from one of the naughty kids, oh, I could have done that. So that's also quite fun. And let's see. I guess that brings us to the yeah. So she says, there's a there's a dead body in the under the bed, and he's like, right in the is that also when she says that her father will kill him if he doesn't, or was that earlier? That was also funny. Anyway, but yeah, he says, I'm gonna come up right now, and if there's not a dead body in your room, I will make one. I think some of the best, when he's especially scared or angry, I think is some of the time it works the best. Yeah, I think, yeah, so Ted. But yeah, he comes up, and at first he insists there's nothing, and he knocks the bottle of liquor. So there's liquor on the floor, and then the kid is standing there smoking, and like we can see where this is going. It's one of those. Sometimes it works really well when you do a joke where the audience can clearly see where something is going. We're just sitting there like, no, oh, don't do it. And yeah, he insists there's nobody in here, and she, yeah, drags it away. It pulls moves the top of the bed to reveal it. Right, and if I understand correctly, the body in the bed was being played by one of Rodriguez's female relatives. I think depending on your sensibilities, being a woman related to Robert Rodriguez, who at one point or another has said, sure, I can appear in one of your movies, is either wonderful or terrible. But yeah, he sees the body and, throws up. That was, the kids, at least one of the kids also has a reaction to him throwing up. And then he calls the cops, and he keeps saying a word I'm not going to repeat, but it is offensive and refers to sex workers. And she does not like hearing that word, and she keeps telling him, stop saying that. And eventually jabs him with the needle. Which, like, we already knew that sometimes she gets violent, which, like, yeah, because her dad's, like, fucking killing people sometimes, So it's a good, it feels like it, there are a number of cases where the offspring of violent people will themselves become violent. Yeah, and the and he starts trying to drag the body away, and then right, and he also doesn't I think he's the one who like knocks the cigarette out of the kid's hand, and so yeah, suddenly Banderas is back. Was also a little iffy, him carrying and dragging his partner, like I don't know, it's a little bit yeah, felt a little uncomfortable. But yeah, he comes in and he sees the fire, he sees the needle, he sees the body, and he looks at Ted, and like we're like, oh shit, well it's happening now. And then he asks, did they misbehave? No. This is completely unrelated. and the sprinkler goes off and it fades to black and the story's over. But that was a great, like, Jesus Christ, understatement. Yeah, I think there's a chance they misbehaved. Yes. Right, I appreciate also Ted got a reaction shot to when he sees the bullseye that they painted. Right, and I think that is also a thing. Sometimes kids will play with the parents' makeup, so yeah. I think that might cover the right, and there's also, of course, some comedy in this idea that, like, I mean, I guess we don't know exactly how long they spent in the room by the time the short starts, but like they were in the door at least, Nobody realized how bad it smells until the parents leave, and then when the parents reappear magically and yell at him for fucking with the window, they don't notice the smell, it's and Ted doesn't notice the smell, at least not at first. So yeah, nicely done on that. And that brings us to the last story, The Man from Hollywood, a title reference to the I forget what it was called, but the Alfred Hitchcock Presents episode, I think it was. I've only watched a little bit of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, but there was definitely some really, really good stuff in there. Anyway, I think... okay, so just briefly, I do quite appreciate... so obviously, Alfred Hitchcock really fucking hate how he treated some of his actresses. I do think he had substantial talent. I'm quite fond of what is it, like a dozen of his movies. Like, he made some really, really solid. Yeah. I think I've watched almost all of the classics of his. I am considering at some point just sitting down and doing a bunch of fucking videos on his movies, because there's a lot to really, yeah, there's a lot of really great about them. Anyway, yes, the I think was it William Fricken, maybe it was one of the but yeah, apparently, like, he was like nervous about meeting Hitchcock because he like directed an episode. It's possible I'm misremembering what director it was, but some like big director, before they made it that big, directed an episode, and was like really nervous about like Hitchcock saying something really negative, like giving really harsh feedback, because he was known to say, like, if you really fucked up, he would let you know. But yeah, apparently one of the only times that he did say something to him, he said, "We like to wear a suit to work." That is a terrible fucking Hitchcock. Jesus Christ. I used to really do a good job on it. It's just been so long since I watched an interview of his. Anyway, but yeah, and I am not sure if Sam Raimi actually ever expected to work directly with Hitchcock, but he, like, I don't know if he still does it, but for a while at least, he would wear a suit while directing, when on set. And like, I think his first movie came out like fairly shortly after Hitchcock's death, so it's not like it was, likely to happen, but he kept wearing a suit to work. That's possibly because of that. I forget if it was in response to that anecdote that I just shared. But anyway, yeah, so yeah, Ted, is called up, right, and yeah. Let me let's to start with yeah. Let's do this properly. So he calls Betty. He did say Betty's his boss, and yeah, he calls her and he's like, "You're gonna have to find someone else to cover. I am fucking leaving. This has been a completely out of control night. But first he gets Marisa Tomei I'm fairly confident that's her. It's been so long since I watched. I have seen a couple of things that she did around this time, but yeah, the yeah, yeah. I see Tarantino is one of those writer directors. He can do like weed dialogue that doesn't make me groan, so that's much appreciated. But yeah, the thing with the Coven of Witches, and the let's see, yeah, the thing about like let me talk to Betty, and she's like, is anybody here called Betty? I'm Betty. This is my place. Betty, this is, who are you again? Ted. Ted. That's genuinely funny. Been a while since I saw Kathy Griffin in something. She was canceled by conservatives because she depicted herself holding Trump's decapitated head years ago. I am not making excuses for that. I don't know exactly what, like, it's one of those things. I don't know why she didn't just, like, I know a lot of people were, getting very direct in their, yeah, in stuff they said about him. And I definitely think, he is rightfully one of the least popular, I guess. He is the least popular, isn't he, president that we know of. As far we don't have we don't have polling data on all of them, or was it just that I forget. But the yeah, uh, he's fucking terrible. He's deeply unqualified. I wish that she had just like, I don't know. I know a lot of people like to depict him as a baby. I'm I think it was that domain who pointed out, should we maybe focus on the things he does that are wrong? Because like it's much easier to, just like shake your head at someone depicting someone you love as a baby, or show them with, comically sized genitalia, that sort of thing, and just be like, well, I guess they don't have an argument because they would just present it if not, so yeah, I'm more of a fan of yeah, criticizing the but the where were we? Goddamn. Yes. I don't know why she showed the head. I bring it up primarily to point out that there are conservatives who like overtly celebrate the death of their political opponents, and they're not canceled. I'm primarily just like pointing out what a fucking double standard that is. Conservatives are almost impossible to cancel. Occasionally they'll cancel each other, but yeah. Moving on. I liked her in 90s stuff. It was nice to see her in this, yeah, she made me laugh a lot in 90s stuff. But yeah, and she, has a very Tarantino monologue about like, listen, this hotel was huge in Hollywood. What did she say? From in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s? We had a slump in the 80s, but we're coming back in the 90s. Do this not just for me, but for the entire staff of the hotel. That was a great, and like, okay, fine, he'll answer the penthouse suite, for Russell, I think his name was, and so he answers and goes up there, and uh yeah, some young women are leaving the room, And I mean, hopefully it's meant to criticize how badly a lot of Hollywood big names treat, you know, those who don't have as much power as they do. Yeah, I really hope that's what it is. Because certainly, a lot of the time in this segment, we are thinking like, Jesus Christ, these fucking people, like these goddamn Hollywood people. But yeah, and he gets in there, and just like the camera work. There was a while where I thought we were actually seeing like a legitimate POV, or I guess some of the time it is kind of a POV, because don't some of the cast look directly into the camera lens, but then at other times it is definitely not a POV. But yeah, I'm really glad that he didn't try to. For a while, it looked like it was going to be a complete one-taker. I'm glad he did not commit to that and insist on sticking to it, because a couple of the close-ups are just fantastic. But yeah, it is great the way that the camera. I guess I pretty much said, but yeah, the way that so for a while it shows, first it shows him, and then it turns around and we see Tarantino there, and then it pulls out and then it pans across and we see through the doorway shot, as Rodriguez pointed out in the commentary track for From Dusk Till Dawn. That's why there's at least some of that in From Dusk Till Dawn, inspired by Tarantino's choice in some of his movies around this time. But yeah, then we have Bruce Willis is pacing back and forth in there, insisting he's not going to shave his beard. And the is that too? Do enough people know that story? I hope so. It's genuinely such a fucking ridiculous. We're gonna move on. But the let's see. Yes, it's great that I think it was his name Norman, maybe the other guy, that the one who really wants the car, and with the lucky lighter and everything, he yells something from off screen, and yeah, it's like slightly, it's like, it's not like scary, but it does give like a brief jolt, and he's just fucking with him, because they're all so drunk. And Jennifer Beals is sitting there, and it's like, Siegfried isn't here, is he? He's out. He's probably going to be out for, what you say, a year or something like that, And then she calls him Theodore, and he's like, only people with a gun to my face get to call me Theodore. You call me Ted. And yeah, the let's see, the I think, yeah, I'm also slightly mixed on, so the Willis character, like he's arguing with his wife, and at least some of the time we're supposed to think that she sounds unreasonable, but then immediately after he says that he's going to kill her. So clearly, like, I think the idea there is that they're just both really, yeah, like some couples, to be clear, I'm not saying, like I already mentioned, I am absolutely not saying that it is the same rate or the same intensity when men and women abuse each other. I think the idea here is that they're one of those couples who, when they start arguing with each other, it gets like completely ridiculous, like that, So yeah. Let's see. Yeah, and the let's see. You have the thing about, yeah. So he, Tarantino brings up, yeah. So I didn't mention that not only does he write and direct a character, he also plays the character who says, Jerry Lewis, right? And apparently, according to IMDb trivia, it's incorrect that he has no speaking lines, but yeah, right. And some fucking fly fucker also was like, that's not technically an entire minute. I say that as if years ago I wouldn't have been that fly fucker. But the yeah, the countdown of that's a minute. That technically wasn't a minute. Someone whatever. We're gonna move on. But yeah, the yeah, he's like, here's try some Cristal. I didn't like champagne until I had Cristal. There's champagne and then there's Cristal. How is it? So what do you say? Thank you. No, about what does it taste like? It's good. It tastes fucking amazing. Try again, And I like the way that he's directing him. He's like saying, no, you got the line wrong, okay? We're still rolling. It's okay. Quiet on set. Take two. But the and the way that Ted, he's been like, he's supposed to not, it's a good contrast. Tarantino's good at having very different people communicate in ways that are different because they just have such different, because like the Hollywood guy is like, everything's huge, nothing is just like, it's good, it's either amazing or terrible, the best or the worst. And Ted has been taught, you're not supposed to get excited, you have to be calm throughout this job, and finally he's like, well, this situation doesn't seem like it's going to completely get fucked, so I'll stay calm for now, but yeah. And then the thing about like, so what did you bring? Oh, but no, let's not rush, come over here with it. And the thing about, so why 3 nails? Because that's what Laurie asks. Laurie. I know his name is Laurie. I'm a fan. I fucking love Peter Lorre. So just to be clear, I'm not. God damn it. Moving on. But yeah, it's like, and when it's one of those things, that's also something Tarantino's quite good at, planting a little, because like what's that mean? And later, sometimes we don't end up finding out, but sometimes we do. And yeah, let's see. I guess that brings us to the yeah. So he presents all the and the thing about Hatchet. What did I say? Hatchet, sharper than the devil. Well, check it, and he's like, oh, that's really sharp, and like, not very long after, it's being used to chop off his fucking fingers. So yeah. But the but yeah, there's also really great work from Bruce Willis. Haven't seen him in something in a little while either. But he's also, and this was some of, like, this was back when he was, I believe this was around the peak of his career. And yeah, like, I don't agree with everything, like his politics and such, but incredible talent, and I feel really bad for him about the I don't want to spend too long about it, but yeah, he had the condition where yeah, it's I you probably either already know or just yeah, I just wanted to say I feel bad for him, and the way that a bunch of people were like laughing at, like, I get that most of them were doing so before we knew that it was a condition, but it's still like, you needed it to be a condition to not laugh at. Like, moving on. The let's see, I think that brings us to the yeah. So then they talk about yeah, they talk about Jerry Lewis, and then they talk about the episode that they were watching, and yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like there's a decent chance that Tarantino, one night maybe rewatched that episode and was like, I could do something with that, and I know that he has expressed that he is fond of. Well, let's see, what was the I think it was Keaton, Buster Keaton, that he said was like, oh, amazing slapstick. The General, maybe? I think it was that one that he mentioned. I think that's what it's called. I'm not sure I've watched any Buster Keaton. I know. I'd like to, but it just hasn't happened. Let's see. Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna move on to the so yeah, the whole thing is explained, and the um yeah, I like the thing about, how, we just need you to cut off his finger. And he's like, you know what? This is not my, I'm leaving. And they're like, I'm going to give you $100 just to come back and sit for 60 seconds. And you don't have to do anything else. You can leave with $100, And so he comes back, and, here's that. And I like, yep, I'm closing. I told you, I'm a closer. Do I get coffee now? And the thing about, how long does it take the average American? What did he say, to count to 100 or something like that? And I love that Ted is like, can you give me a clue? And Jennifer Beals has to lean in. It's a rhetorical question, Ted. And because he's a people pleaser, his job is to go along with, if someone asks for something, if they're a guest at the hotel, he has to go along with it, to a certain extent. So he's going to try to guess, yeah, he lays it all out, and he keeps putting money on, and the close-up of, the eyes tracking the money and the hands moving bills, and he says, this is what you leave with, no matter what, in 60, less than 60 seconds. This pile over here, that is what you take with. If you, oh fuck, I lost count. Genuinely great, and you find yourself sitting there thinking, like, Jesus Christ. I mean, I don't fucking approve. I wouldn't want to hurt someone, but like, that's a lot of fucking money. And like, he's explaining, someone's gonna do it, and he's not gonna lose his finger. We're gonna have it sewed back on. And they reference the yeah. I'm not going to spend forever on it, but just obviously, Lorena Bobbitt's yeah. I'll just briefly note, it's pretty fucked up that he, let's see, I forget if he became a celebrity or he just tried to, but this, really, really fucked up. In my opinion, violence should only ever be the last resort. But I find it very hard to, like, be mad at her for doing it. I certainly can't blame her. Now, let's see. I think... And it is one of those cases where, you'll hear misogynist men say, oh, why don't women just do something? Why do they just accept it? But then when one does something, they're like, why did you do that? Well, I think you can work out she took away his weapon. What the fuck did you think? Like, anyway, yes, the let's see. I think, does that bring us to the part? God damn it. Where did we get to? Yeah, so and they talk about the car, and then he like opens it, and the guy gets annoyed, so he grabs the magazine and puts it down, and the whole just Ted, is so much thinking about the money that he, like, I think he just forgets that he's supposed to wait until 10, like, because the thing is, there's $1,000 on the fucking table, and he's been told he can walk away with it if he chops off the finger. And they tell him, are you ready? I think he might have been a little too fucking ready. So he's just like chops and then grabs the money and walks away. It's like practically whistling, dancing down the hallway, just like, the fuck did you think was gonna happen? Just like, yeah. I think that might pretty much cover. Yeah, and they're panicked, like running around, like, oh, we have to save the finger, throw in the ice bucket and all that shit. Just yeah. It's a really fucked up joke, but we are laughing at people who are like intentionally doing something incredibly fucked up, that, like, he agrees to it. Like, yes, he's drunk. All three guys are drunk, but he does, like, yeah, it's the what's the word? They don't. There's no need for them to do it. Like, he has a car, he just doesn't like the car he has, and yeah. Let's see. Then we have the right. Also, the part, it's very Tarantino. The part where he, like, drinks some of one of the bottles, and he's like, "This is fucking flat. Who drank from this bottle last?" And I think at least one of them is like, "Does it matter?" And he's like, "Well, I guess you don't know how much this fucking costs. Are you the one? You should have put the cork back in." And he pours it out on the floor, and then grabs another bottle, drinks from the bottle, and pours it to Ted, and just, yeah. Let's see. It is very much like we're getting a very clear image of who they are, and yeah, like, it's so completely fucking unnecessary, but they're celebrating. The movie made a lot of money, and it is also fun to have. I mean, certainly this was when Tarantino was, making, starting to make it really big, starting to become like a huge name. So him playing, the man from Hollywood, right? Because I think the episode was called The Man from Reno. Now I remember the Laurie episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. But yeah, I think that might cover everything. I like that eventually Jennifer Beals' character did start calling him Ted instead of Theodore. And I guess that pretty much covers everything. I mean, I guess I appreciate, in a way, there was some niceness to sending them away. I just think they should have been allowed to dress first. But the two women at the start of that portion, when he first gets to the penthouse, that maybe he didn't want them seeing. Maybe they, in fact, protested when they found out what was about to happen. Because, like, there was, the call was made, and then he, gathers the stuff, and then, takes the elevator up there and goes up to the room. Yeah, I can imagine there was like a conversation. That's, again, something Tarantino's good at, making us think, did they have to talk this over off screen? And it's just like, yeah, I think there's some chance that they were like, you're not chopping his finger off. And, Russell was like, this is my room, get with it or get the fuck out. And yeah, I think that might cover. Right, Okie Dokie did a video talking about, congratulations to Megan Thee Stallion. And I agree. And as usual, excellent analysis by Okie Dokie. I think that might... Oh, right. And Medus1, I think, is that how you pronounce it? I hope. Did a video talking about Sabrina Carpenter. I think it was called You Don't Talk About Male Artists Like This. Yeah, both videos really great at criticizing misogyny. In general, that's, I haven't been subscribed to either of them for that long, but that's my experience. They're really great at criticizing misogyny. Yeah, I think that covers everything. So yeah, like, on the whole, definitely, there's a lot here that I really loved across the various shorts. Yeah, I guess I haven't said until now, I wouldn't be opposed to watching more by, and their names have lost my memory, escaped my memory again. I'm sorry. Anders and, yeah, it's just gone, and my wrists are too sore to check right now. But the remaining of the directors, I would be open to that, based on their work here. I will admit, if this had been the first thing I saw Tim Roth in, I might have been like, okay, I'm gonna have to work really hard to earn back my any goodwill from yours truly. Yeah, I think that covers everything. Yeah, I know I already said, the book ending works. I think it's, I like that, like, over the course of this one night, he makes, so it was at least $1,500. Yeah, and also has these really extremely unpleasant experiences. I think that it works well. I appreciate that it's not just like 94 minutes of him being miserable nonstop. Like, there's ups and downs, and at the end of the ups and downs, Diana the Witch Goddess comes back.